where anyone can walk up behind them and take it. That's not proper carry for a pistol. So, you know, what can we do? Gun buybacks in high crime areas is a good start. But we also need to understand that guns being used in Chicago today are bought in Indiana. They come across the state line to Gary. Chicago has tough gun laws. Indiana does not. So we make it possible for the violence in Chicago. Hoosiers are doing that. What can I do as a congressman? Well, we can do things. We can provide funding for opportunities. We need infrastructure. That creates jobs. Toby's 100% correct. When we create jobs, crime goes down. People's economic futures improve. Let's do that first.
So let's go switch the topic to another issue that's plaguing Hoosiers, and that's opioid abuse and opioid use. And so in an effort to curtail opioid abuse and help those with chronic pain and PTSD sufferers, what will be your stance on the legalization of medical cannabis and federal laws that impact this effort? We're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Beck.
Okay. I can speak from experience in this because I take opioids. I have a spine problem that I have to take opioids some days or I just don't walk. Never been addicted to them, don't see why people are. But some people are and some people do need them. I need them to help my pain. So the problem with opioids is not that they're, the problem with opioids is that they're available on the street. And the reason they're available on the street is because opioid makers manufacture them and get them to people, and they don't care where they go once they sell them. West Virginia town had, what, 70,000 people and sold 4.5 million pills in the year before. That's where you have to stop it. And by the way, we tried to stop that, and Republicans in the Senate stopped that bill to prevent that. So opioids are good. And as far as legalizing medical marijuana, legalize marijuana, period. And so you stop your prison problems, you stop a lot of problems by just making it legal. I've known people my whole life. I'm 62 that's smoked their whole life. Never saw them. They're now doctors, lawyers, politicians. You know. And as far as you making them illegal, making pot just medical, make it legal for all. Just make it legal. Tax it like Colorado. But make it so you can use the money for school, because Colorado's got all this money, but they are not allowed to spend it by the Republican state on schools. So now they're having to go to a 4-day school week. Done.
I get calls from parents who are frantic. Their children are very sick. They're being hypertoxified, chemotherapies. They've been irradiated. And I get these calls. Do you think I should give my child CBD oil? What are your thoughts on marijuana? And I tell them, you know, it's not what I think, it's what I know. First thing, if you do this with your child, regardless of what medicine is doing, you are a criminal. Secondly, you cannot give a child or should not give a child in treatment for cancer or anything that you have not discussed with the child's oncologist. Now, I do believe that we need a full-blown legalization of marijuana. We need a new cash crop for our Hoosier farmers. Trade war with China. Every third row of soybeans grown in Indiana is sold to China. We are in trouble. Mexico is the largest purchaser of our corn. They have abandoned the United States and are now going to Argentina. We have a big problem in Indiana. So there are some real problems here. Marijuana by itself isn't an answer. It is part of an answer. I do believe that we need to legalize it, get it off the books, and leave people alone to guide their own lives.
In states that have legalized medical marijuana, they have lower levels of opioid addiction. That is a fact. However, that being said, it is in the less regulated states that have the states with the medical marijuana where it's less regulated, less stringent rules behind it, where there is a larger correlation between medical marijuana access and lower opioid addiction problems. That being said, just legalize this shit. Seriously. Just completely legalize it. Do the science, figure it out, figure out, like alcohol, what is the level of inebriation, and figure that out so that we can do that. You're caught behind the wheel and you're above that legal limit, just like driving drunk. That's what we need to do. So there's that. I live in Newton County. Newton and DeMont and Jasper counties, it's called Indiana ditchweed for a reason, because we grew it in the 40s for the World War II effort.
That's a tough act to follow. But on a more serious note, as far as the opioid crisis is concerned, I've been blessed over the last month to be meeting with some mental health service providers, some youth service experts, and some police department, law enforcement professionals from the Cass, Howard, Clinton, White County area. And I recognize, like I said earlier, that it's going to take that fabric niching itself together to try to deal with the crisis as it exists here. And I think that synergy is happening around us. As far as the legalization of marijuana is concerned, I've been in front of this issue for 25 years. I drafted up legislation 25 years ago to decriminalize marijuana in Indiana, and to put it, as was said right here, paralleling our spirit model. And I used to go to functions and speak on behalf of that for a long, long time. I also was prepared to sue the seed commissioner 2 years ago when we decriminalized industrial hemp in Indiana, and then he refused to release the seeds. And initially, if you go back and read the bill, it said for commercial and research purposes. Somehow in the middle of the night, they removed commercial and just made it for research purposes only. I do see that as a future, but again, like I said, we're going to have to create a whole synergy out there that gives people hope for a better tomorrow. And if that means higher paying jobs and a living wage and affordable housing, I think that's all part of it. It truly is. We may be able to make some dollars associated with legalization, but I'm a firm believer in this, my friends. Grow your own. Plant that seed, grow it to maturity, just like you would a tomato or anything. You know the love associated with that tomato you grow. You probably know the love with the marijuana.
Taxes.
Grow your own.
Taxes.
We'll get our taxes from somewhere else, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Pretty obvious this crowd would
Get it from
find
unicorn.
legalizing medical marijuana, and that's reasonable. The government has been notoriously bad at making medical decisions. This is yet another one. So this is a matter of go ahead and make it as a medical drug that can be given to people. It has beneficial effects. I'd extend it a little bit further to legalizing hemp and hemp production within the state. That increases what farmers can grow. There's many, many uses for CBD oil, for hemp products. So that entire category, go for it. I'll simply repeat what they said. But they're not wrong.
No, they're not.
So, thank you, candidates, for the lively discussion and your stance on medical marijuana. In the last decade, Indianapolis has endured record-breaking heat waves, droughts, cold spells, floods that have impacted homes, Hoosiers, businesses, and made farming difficult here in our area. Is there anything, if elected, you would do to combat climate change, CO2, or pollution? We're going to start with Ms. Beck.
To combat climate change, CO2 or pollution. Sorry, I had to write it down. The number one issue that produces a destruction of the environment is our production of energy. We need to actively pursue cleaner sources of energy. We were up at the wind farms yesterday, and they have an amazing cycle there working for inside the Benton wind farms. It is an alternate source, but each community needs to find the most productive form of clean energy for them. Down in White County, they're not happy with the wind farms, but you know what? Solar works well for them. Down in other places, it can be hydro power. There are multiple sources of clean energy that are available to us, and those are the things we need to ultimately shift to. We can't flip a switch and go overnight, but producing energy is the number one pollutant that we have in this country. So is there something we can do to impact climate change? Absolutely. We can pursue actively cleaner sources of energy, zero resource consumption costs in our energy. That's a lot to say in 1 minute.
You did it, girlfriend.
I guess I'll go next. I'm going to support the wind farms. Back up in Benton and White counties, 1,500 megawatts is what they're producing. And that's astronomical. Here in Indianapolis, not too far away at the airport, it is I re-looked it up, it is the world's largest airport installed solar panel system, producing the largest. The next 4 in the top 5 aren't together equaling Indianapolis's output. Big one, we're a large farming community. Corn ethanol. I know a lot of people will say, oh, food or fuel. I'll teach you if you want to believe it. It's food and fuel. You can do it. Ethanol. In fact, I run my truck on it, because my truck is flex fuel. And technically I'm getting 100 miles per gallon of gasoline as a result of it. I can't beat that. Think about that. That's amazing. And it is very clean environmentally. Less pollutants than just straight gasoline. So, those are all alternative energy sources that we have now, we have today that we can use. It's the way to go. I just recently saw that in next year, they're decommissioning one of the nuclear reactors at TMI. So, and good riddance.
Okay, I'm the next in the middle here. Here's the way I see it. I've been fighting this for a long time. I remember when LA used to hang over the smog, you couldn't even breathe. And the Democratic Party did something about it. Now LA has pretty clean air. We've come a long way. But the Republicans have stopped everything. Listen, the earth is just, I believe, like the Native Americans. The earth is a living being. It will heal itself if we get out of the way. We're the cancerous, our technology and our energy, and we're the cancer on this earth. All we need to do is quit making palm oil and ripping down rainforests, about hundreds of acres a day, 1,000 acres a day. We need to cut down on our fuel, our carbon dioxide emissions. We need to stop the global warming because it's going to release a massive carbon dioxide release and methane release on the frozen tundras up north in Siberia and Canada, and when those thaw out, and they're thawing out now. So we really have a major problem, probably the biggest problem of the Republicans facing the earth today. So we need to do what we can do to help the earth heal itself. Put the rainforest back. Build. All you have to do is leave them alone. They'll take their property back, and they'll release this carbon. Let science solve this problem with our help.
There are 2 things Congress can do today. The single greatest threat to the environment, not just here in the United States, but around the world, is the dismantling of the EPA. We need to have the EPA. It needs to be funded by scientists. We need to depoliticize science. Science should be managed by scientists. Secondly, infrastructure development, which is exactly what my friends here are talking about. $2 trillion in infrastructure development. We can create the new energies. We can create the new markets. We can create 2 million new jobs. These are the 2 things that Congress can do today to change the direction we are heading. These are both issues that affect all of us and not just some of us.
As I indicated, thank you for your words, everyone. As I indicated earlier, I've been in front of this issue now for 30 years. I wrote the original letters to the editor that brought it in place. The Benton and White County windmills that are there, we can go up to Fair Oaks and see how the synergies that's happening on our farms from an energy production standpoint. We can go to the Energy Center right now up on the Ivy Tech campus in Lafayette and see how they're creating new jobs for kids in this area. But really what it comes down to at the end of the day, and I appreciate where you're coming from, Joe, but you, my friends, have to demand this change yourself, and you have to make those purchases happen. In '99, Ford had a 110 pluggable vehicle that they were driving around downtown Indianapolis. Chevy and was partnering with Rolls-Royce to have a 110 plug-in truck. What happened? We got a new president in place. We decided we were going to scrap all that ideas, and we went to war in the Middle East for additional oil. Nobody blinked an eye. And until, like I said, we can come up with all sorts of solutions, but until you people, everybody in this room, start demanding the change that we want to see, you'll just have 5 candidates up here talking about the future. So, thank you.
So what is your stand on illegal immigration and deferred action for childhood arrivals? We're going to start with Mr. Day.
Very simple again. Put it back like it was. If you You don't,